You're listening to the Quint's podcast.
Delhi's COVID hospitals have been gasping for oxygen. Some have enough to last 3 hours, some have 2, some even less than that for critical patients who are depending on this life-saving oxygen. There are messages and videos of helpless hospital staff, doctors, and relatives of patients who are crying out for help as hospitals are looking to discharge patients over this acute shortage. As Delhi reports 24,638 new cases and 249 fresh deaths on 22nd April, unequal demand and supply of oxygen has made this a coveted medical essential. Although there hasn't been any large-scale disasters so far due to last-minute interventions, the city is practically standing on the very edge of this crisis with more and more Delhi hospitals running severely low on oxygen supply every day. On 21st April, for instance, State Health Minister Satyendra Jain had to appeal to the centre on Twitter to help with oxygen provisions in GTB hospital, claiming that the hospital had only a few hours worth of supply left. And it's only the arrival of the oxygen tanker at the nick of time that averted a crisis. The same day, another hospital, Ganga Ram Hospital, which has 120 patients on ICU beds, was also almost out of oxygen, when again it was a last-minute oxygen supply that prevented a crisis from spiraling out. What has also been choking the supply in the city is the politics around oxygen between the states amid this crisis. While the Delhi government has claimed that oxygen tankers coming into the city were blocked by Haryana and UP, Haryana Health Minister Anil on 21st April counter-accused Delhi of quote-unquote looting the state's oxygen supply. The problem over oxygen shortage in the capital reached the Delhi High Court as well, with the court expressing disappointment and telling the centre, quote, "Why is the government not waking up to the reality? How is the government so oblivious of the ground reality? We can't let people die," end quote. But it's only after the court took up the urgent hearing on 21st April and directed the centre to ensure oxygen supply by quote-unquote whatever means required, did the MHA put out an order on 22nd April saying that no restrictions can be imposed on movement of oxygen between states. The order also stated that oxygen supply cannot be limited to any one particular state. So why is the national capital of India the seat of the central government dealing with such a terrible crisis at this moment? To understand this oxygen crisis in Delhi, to look at what strategies have been implemented for oxygen supply to meet the current high demand, and what kind of actions are required at this point, we spoke to Mr. Subhash Chandar, a manufacturer of medical gases including oxygen, and Mr. Anil Bhan, who's a public health expert. You're tuned in to The Big Story, the podcast where we dissect the headline-making news for you. And I'm your host, Shalvari. As India reported over 3 lakh new cases on 22nd April, it goes without saying that the demand for oxygen has shot up in an unprecedented manner. Oxygen therapy, as we know, has become a crucial part of COVID treatments for serious patients, and so there has been a sustained demand for this life-saving essential through the beginning of the pandemic. But in the recent days, the shortage of supply in Delhi has gotten especially critical as politics over oxygen choked the city's supplies. The centre had on 21st April increased Delhi's oxygen allocation from 378 metric tons to 489 metric tons, although the state government had asked for 700 metric tons in view of the rising cases. But on 21st April, at least 3 hospitals, Irene Hospital, Holy Child and St. Stephen's Hospitals, that depend on Lind India for their oxygen supply, was also running short of oxygen for their COVID patients. It was reported that this crucial medical supply was allegedly stuck just a few kilometers away at the Delhi-Haryana border. In the case of the GTB hospital crisis that I mentioned before, where the oxygen supply was coming from Inox Air Products, the oxygen tanker was reportedly stuck at the UP border. What is quite surprising are reports claiming that the Uttar Pradesh government has stationed guards and officers outside Inox Air's manufacturing plant at Greater Noida to block oxygen supply outside the state, as Uttar Pradesh itself is allegedly facing an oxygen shortage. Elsewhere in Haryana, Mr. Vitt said, and I'm quoting him, quote, "Whatever oxygen we are generating in Haryana, we shall secure it for our patients first of all and then supply it out of the state," end quote. As states got into a blame game at this odd moment of crisis, is it the priorities that seem misplaced in this oxygen politics? Mr. Anand Bhan, who's a public health expert, weighs in.
Yeah, so I mean, it's clear that we need to understand that oxygen is a core life-saving intervention at this point of time. Indeed, it is actually at all points of time because other kinds of patients also require oxygen. Towards that, borders between states should not matter. What is important is to ensure that there is adequate supply wherever it is required at all points of time. And for that center, for that states, for that facilities, health systems, whether they are private, public, managed by central government or state government, should not matter. There should be enough efforts made to ensure that no one is short of oxygen.
But anyway, after a plea came in from Max Healthcare Hospitals on the same day, that is 21st April, in an urgent hearing, a division bench of Vipin Sanghi and Justice Rekha Palli directed the central government to divert the entire supply of oxygen from other industries. If that is what it takes to save lives, the court said, divert oxygen from steel and petroleum industries towards the medical sector. Now, the government has previously said that India has sufficient oxygen production capacity and that whatever surplus stock is available with steel plants is also being utilized for medical purposes now. Then on 21st April, it also said that out of the total 7,500 metric tons of oxygen being produced in India per day, 6,600 metric tons were being redirected to the medical sector. So what is bringing about the gap in oxygen demand and supply in Delhi? Why are states having to scramble for the share of oxygen? Mr. Subhash Chandra says that other than the spike in demand, there are also logistical and distributing issues that are holding up a smooth supply.
Now the question is oxygen in particular. What actually is really surprising is that the oxygen demand compared to if the total oxygen available in the country is 100, then the medical oxygen demand is not more than 20% of it.
Right.
In normal circumstances. With COVID, yes, it has multiplied, aggravated drastically, I can agree with you. And then fortunately the government has taken very right decision that they have banned oxygen being diverted for the industrial purposes.
Right.
Which is otherwise quite a major chunk. Normally they differentiate medical and industrial gases by virtue of certain tests being conducted on the medical gas.
Right.
But gas produced per se from the plant is same. It's like from Himalayas, the water which comes out, partly it becomes Gangotri and other becomes the Yamunotri, something like that.
Right.
So it becomes a medical or industrial depending on we test it and find it okay. But the gas per se, the water per se is same. So similarly here, gas per se is same. So there is nothing wrong in having government having taken the right decision of diverting all the industrial gas into the medical purposes. Very stringently they have passed on the directives. There are orders from the government. And then they have waived off all the related regulations. They put a moratorium. They will not catch somebody by selling industrial gas as a medical law. People don't have to worry about it. Similarly, the number of
oxygen being redirected, then is there enough oxygen to supply for the medical needs?
I suppose it should be. It should be possible. I mean, it should have adequately served the purpose of medical. Unless very highly proportionate demand has multiplied so drastically. But normal circumstances, diverting oxygen gives a tremendous support to the medical requirements, and it, in my opinion, should meet. Unless there are some problems in diverting and distributing and logistics issue for reaching that oxygen into the pockets where it is needed.
But then there's also the fact that some states don't manufacture oxygen while some others do. That has increased dependency on the manufacturing states as the numbers are rising every day. UP, for instance, which has manufacturing plants that supplies to Delhi, has itself been facing a crisis. A report on the Indian Express from 22nd April said that a notice outside Mayo Clinic in Lucknow read, and I'm reading out a few lines from the notice, quote, after repeated requests to the UP CM and the central government, we are not able to get enough oxygen supply. Hence, we are requesting family members of those patients who are on oxygen support to please take their patients to a higher center for further management. We are extremely sorry for the inconvenience. End quote. Or, for instance, take the case of Madhya Pradesh, which has no manufacturing plant of its own in the state and also had to ask the centre, quite like Delhi, to intervene. The state's Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan had also made similar allegations as the Delhi government. And I'm quoting a tweet of his from 19th April. Quote, "Yesterday, oxygen tankers of Madhya Pradesh were stopped by some authorities of other states. This wastes time and there's a risk of losing lives during the pandemic." End quote. Now, while the latest MHA order, which has lifted all restrictions on movements of oxygen tankers across states, can perhaps douse the oxygen crisis in Delhi, but is some of the current crisis arriving from the lack of management? Did authorities not preempt the demand of oxygen to shoot up in the second wave? Mr. Bhan says that there has been enough forecasting for the need of oxygen to go high in this pandemic.
Yeah, I think there should have been enough forecasting of the possibility that we'll need more oxygen. I mean, I think that those were one of the lessons from last year, that we know what kind of a disease this is, and for those who need hospitalization, there's a high probability that a significant number of them will require oxygen, right? That's one of the basic requirements for good quality COVID care. If that is the case, then you have to keep enough reserves. You have to make sure that you are prepared for a potential rise in number of infections, another wave, because that's been a global experience in many countries. They've had repeated increases happening. So given that, we should have just been prepared for that, and oxygen would have been a key component.
But as Mr. Subhash Chandra points out, that the problem lies with both the state and the centre, at least in the case of Delhi's crisis. The proposal to install 8 PSA oxygen plants in Delhi with the support of PM CARES funds to lessen dependency on other manufacturers has been delayed. Only one such plant has been installed so far, the Union government told the Delhi High Court on 20th April. And this is what Mr. Subhash Chandra said.
See, very frankly telling you, it is difficult to imagine. It has become so magnanimous. The magnitude has become so big that diverting 80% the gas also in addition to 20% into the system. Now, what another issue is, which I have been with, particularly related to Delhi. Delhi, some of the government hospitals, I remember, they were given all the government hospitals in Delhi were provided with the oxygen plants. They are PSA plants. There is a simple process of pressure swing adsorption process, which is a very simple plant, were provided to all the hospitals so that they have some self reliability, self sufficiency is provided onto them. But unfortunately, most of the government hospitals I found they are not operating. They don't operate. For the certain inherent problem in our country, that it's easy to live with the suppliers and manage with the supplier, make some, be happy with the supplier rather than taking the trouble of running the plant themselves. So I'm sure that also that needs to be really addressed. Why those plants have been kept idle, and at this crisis, at least we should stand up and start using those plants in addition to what is available in the market.
As far as the plans for the 162 PSA oxygen plants for the rest of the country go, citing an affidavit, India Today reported that only 33 of those plants have been installed so far. So what is the way forward in this crisis? While some are calling for an urgent need of a centralized strategy, some have proposed oxygen corridors for a smooth supply. And Mr. Bhan says that innovative ideas are what is required at this point of time.
And so this is not the time to be sparring about jurisdictions. This is about probably ensuring wherever there is a need that we ensure that need is met with, and at the same time also on a rapid footing prepare for getting more production done, whether that is by diversion from industries, whether that is by commissioning new plants, so that we don't have more of these situations. There is quite a chance that, for example, we might have more number of cases happening over the next few weeks. Hopefully not, but it could happen, and so we need to be prepared for that. It's not just about current capacity and need, it's about what might be required at that point of time. Yeah, I mean, innovations like that is required. Getting oxygen fast to where it is required, making sure that we have a clear idea on where, oxygen is being produced, where it needs to be supplied, and ensuring that it is supplied on a priority basis. And yet at the same time, we also start producing more oxygen so that we have adequate supplies at the back end and also storage for this.
While several high courts are hearing matters on shortage of oxygen supply and other essentials, on 22nd April, the Supreme Court asked the Centre for a national plan to address the shortage. The hearing is scheduled to take place on 23rd April, so stay tuned to the Quint for more updates. If you like listening to this episode, please subscribe to the Big Story playlist for episodic updates. We're live on Apple, Google Podcast, Spotify, JioSaavn, and most of the other popular podcast streaming platforms. For other podcasts, please log on to the Quint website and check out the podcast section. For any feedback, shoot an email to podcasts@thequint.com.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint's website and check out our other podcasts